If you've ever thought of Christmas as a time when family sits together, says a few kind words, shares a warm meal, and smiles at one another like people who genuinely love each other, then congratulations. You've been luckier than I have. Because for me, that Christmas wasn't about church bells, gingerbread cookies, or blinking lights on a Christmas tree. It was the moment I finally understood one thing. To my parents, I wasn't a daughter. I was a resource, and my younger sister, Anna, was the one entitled to consume that resource. I arrived at my parents' house in Austin on the evening of the 24th, carrying a bottle of red wine and an apple pie I'd baked myself that afternoon. I'd spent nearly 2 hours rolling dough, slicing apples, sprinkling cinnamon, foolishly thinking, well, no matter what kind of family this is, I should still try. It's Christmas. The moment the door opened, that familiar smell hit me. Roasted deli meat, buttery sauce, and that indescribable scent of my parents' house that you recognize instantly no matter how long you've been away. Everything looked exactly the same as it had 20 years ago. The fake Christmas tree in the corner of the living room, the decorative gift boxes that always looked brand new because they were fake, and a slightly crooked wreath hanging on the front door. Never fixed, never adjusted. I stepped inside and smiled politely, like a guest. Funny, isn't it? But it's true. I felt like a guest in my own family. Anna was already there. She was sprawled across the sofa like a queen, one hand holding her phone, the other scrolling endlessly. Oversized sweatshirt, pajama pants, hair loosely tied up. No makeup, yet still carefully angling her face for the camera. She didn't even look up. I said, "Hey." "Hey," Anna replied, eyes glued to her screen, as if I were a TV that had turned itself on in the room. My dad was in the kitchen, slicing meat with slow, deliberate movements, the kind of man who prides himself on helping with housework, even though he does exactly one task a year and considers it a major contribution. My mom was setting the table, adjusting napkins, straightening plates, fussing as if we were expecting VIP guests. I handed my apple pie to my mom. She glanced at it and said, "Oh, that's nice," then set it down like a decorative item. No one asked how I'd been, how work was going, whether I was tired, whether I was happy. No one asked anything, and I was used to it. We sat down to eat around 7 p.m. The conversation was purely obligatory, the weather being colder than last year, a neighbor's new car, how crowded downtown had been with tourists lately. I took a sip of wine and told myself, it's fine. Just finish dinner, exchange a few smiles, and go home. But life never lets me just go home. Halfway through the meal, as I was cutting a piece of meat and trying not to think about how many years I'd worked to build my current life, Anna suddenly put her phone down. A rare occurrence, truly rare. She looked up at me and broke into a bright smile. That smile sent a chill down my spine. You know that feeling when someone suddenly becomes overly cheerful for no reason? Like they're about to take something from you and want you to hand it over willingly, then thank them for it. Anna smiled, her voice bubbling with excitement like a child receiving a gift. "Masha, Mom and Dad said I can move into your new condo next week." I stopped chewing. I genuinely stopped chewing. The meat in my mouth turned rubbery. I set my knife down and looked straight at Anna. Then I looked at my parents. My mom was suddenly very focused on her green beans, as if they held the secrets of the universe. My dad sliced another piece of meat without lifting his head. I asked, slowly and clearly, "Sorry, what did you just say?" Anna kept smiling, as if she were announcing I'd won the lottery. The downtown condo, the one you just bought. Mom and Dad said I can move in. I'm so happy. I'm tired of living here. Downtown is more fun, close to cafes, friends, and it looks great for photos too. When she said, "looks great for photos," her eyes sparkled. In my head, I heard a sharp snap, like a string breaking. I turned to my mom. "Mom, what did you tell Anna?" My mom finally looked up, and her expression, God, it was terrifyingly calm. "Masha, you already have more than one place," she said lightly, as if discussing dessert options. "You're doing well financially. Helping your sister a little won't hurt. Anna needs a place to stay." I looked at my mom, then at my dad. He still didn't look up, just delivered a sentence like a court verdict. "You're successful. You can support your sister." Support? I almost laughed, but the kind of laughter that makes no sound, because if I laughed out loud, I would cry. And I didn't want to cry in front of them. Not that night. I swallowed, my throat burning. My mind started replaying memories like a film reel. 16-year-old me at a cash register, hands shaking after a 10-hour weekend shift. 19-year-old me moving into a damp, moldy rented room. All the times I skipped meals, skipped purchases, skipped everything just to save money. And Anna? Anna was stressed after one semester of school and quit. Anna needed a break. Anna wasn't suited for the work environment. And my parents always said, "Let us handle it." Now they were saying, "You handle it." I looked at Anna. She was already imagining that condo as hers. The downtown balcony as her stage. The photos, the stories, the compliments. She was imagining my life, built with my sweat, as her reward. My face burned with anger. But instead of yelling, instead of arguing, I did what I'd learned from years working in hospitality. I smiled. A very polite smile. Perfectly professional. I took a sip of wine. Held it in my mouth for a few seconds, as if forcing the anger down. Then I said gently, as if commenting on the weather, "Oh, thanks for letting me know in advance." Anna smiled even wider, delighted. "I knew it. I also didn't want to bother you. Mom and Dad said they'll take care of everything." I nodded and set my glass down. "Then," I said softly, "you can move in on Tuesday." At that moment, I saw my dad nod in satisfaction. My mom sighed in relief, as if a burden had been lifted. Anna immediately bent over her phone, probably texting a friend. "I'm getting a downtown condo." And me? I stayed seated. I kept eating. I answered a few polite questions, but inside me, something had changed. You know that feeling when you're standing at the edge, and you finally step over? That night, I drove home gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I thought only one thing. Okay, Tuesday. Fine, but Tuesday won't be what they think. And I swore to myself, this would be the last time they treated me like a breathing wallet. On the drive home that night, I didn't turn on any music. Not because I was sad, but because my head was already too loud. My mother's words kept looping in my mind like a needle stuck on a record. "You're doing fine. Helping your sister a little won't hurt." A little. I laughed in the darkness, a dry, hollow sound filling the car. Then it stopped just as quickly. If someone asked me, "Masha, when did your family start treating you unfairly?" I'd say, there was no specific day. It was like water dripping. At first, no one notices. By the time the floor has rotted through, people pretend to be surprised. I started working when I was 16. My first job was at a grocery store near my school. Saturdays and Sundays, standing for 8 to 10 hours straight, my feet aching so badly I had to soak them in hot water at night. I still remember the sharp chemical smell of the freshly mopped floor and the constant beep of the barcode scanner. I worked because I wanted money for books, for gas, because I didn't want to ask my parents for every single dollar. Anna stayed home, rolling around in bed, complaining that school was too stressful. When I graduated high school, I didn't have the luxury of taking time off to find myself. I enrolled in a community college because tuition was cheaper, then took a job as a hotel front desk clerk on the night shift. The night shift. If you've never worked nights, let me tell you, it wears you down from the inside. Your body clock shatters. You sleep while others live, and you work while the world sleeps. At 3 in the morning, when the hotel lobby was eerily quiet, I'd stand behind the desk and wonder, what am I doing with my life? But I still showed up. Every day, without complaining. My parents knew I worked nights. They knew I was exhausted. They knew I was studying and working at the same time. But they never asked, do you need help? They said, you're grown now. Take care of yourself. Anna was different. Anna made it through exactly 1 semester of college. 1 semester. Then she announced to the family that the classes were too intense, the environment was toxic, and that she needed to take care of her mental health. My parents nodded immediately. No questions, no conditions, no requirement to find a part-time job. No, maybe try a little longer. No. They said, all right, come home and rest. Rest. Anna rested for years. While I lived in a tiny studio with moldy walls and a heater that rattled every night, Anna stayed in her old bedroom. Big bed, air conditioning, food always stocked in the fridge. I remember calling home once, telling my mom I wasn't sure whether I should buy a used laptop for school because money was tight. She went quiet for a moment, then said, you decide. That same week, Anna posted a story showing off her brand new iPhone, bought by our parents. No one saw any contradiction. I changed jobs, got promoted, became an assistant hotel manager. Every time I got a raise, I didn't celebrate. I opened Excel and thought, how much more do I need to save to be safe? I lived like someone preparing for the day no one would catch me if I fell. And I was right. When I was 19, I moved out. Not because my family kicked me out, but because I knew, if I stayed, I would forever be the one who could handle things, and therefore, the one expected to handle everything. My parents didn't stop me, didn't ask me to stay, didn't ask, do you have enough money? They just said, that's good, you're independent early. That sentence was repeated for years like a compliment, but in reality, it was the reason they never helped me. 3 years later, I bought my first house. It was small, nothing fancy, but it was mine. On the day I signed the papers, I stood alone in the notary office. No parents, no sister. My mom said she was busy. Anna didn't even reply to my message. I remember sitting in my car afterward, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the ownership papers, thinking, so this is it. Even the most important moment of my life. I'm alone. Anna still lived at home, still hadn't held a job longer than 3 months, still received allowance money, shopping money, short getaway travel money to change the atmosphere. And no one said a thing. When I bought my second property, the condo they treated as communal property that Christmas, I didn't even brag. I just told my mom on the phone, quietly, I bought an investment property. She replied, Oh, that's nice. Then switch topics to Christmas food. No, congratulations. No, you worked so hard. No, I'm proud of you. Just, oh. And that was that. Two paths. Two lives. One person living by the rule, if I don't do it, no one will. One person living with the belief, if I want it, someone will take care of it. And that Christmas night, when Anna smiled brightly and announced she would be moving into my condo, as if it were her obvious reward, I finally understood. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a system. And I had been carrying that system for years. But this time was different, because I was no longer the 16-year-old girl standing behind a cash register. And Tuesday was coming very soon. There is one thing my family has never understood, and I think they never really wanted to. That is, what I have is not luck. It is the result of thousands of times I said no to myself. No new clothes, no travel, no eating out, no quitting, even when I was exhausted. All in exchange for one single thing: security. After buying my first house, I didn't feel rich or successful the way people like to describe it. What I felt was lighter. Lighter because I knew that if I lost my job tomorrow, I would still have a roof over my head. No one could throw me out. No one could use money to control me. And that feeling, independence, changed me. I started thinking longer term, further ahead. I began studying personal finance, real estate, how to make money generate money, instead of constantly trading time for a paycheck. In the evenings after work, while others watched movies or scrolled their phones, I sat with my laptop, staring at dry spreadsheets, reading loan terms line by line, studying interest rates number by number. I wasn't smarter than anyone else. I was just more persistent. 3 years after my first house, I bought my second property. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, in a newly renovated building right in downtown Austin, a balcony overlooking the street, an in-unit washer and dryer, clean elevators and 24/7 security. The day I received the keys, I stood alone in the empty condo, the sound of my footsteps echoing across the new wooden floor. Sunlight streamed through the large glass windows, reflecting off the pristine white walls. I slowly turned in a circle and thought, Masha, you did it. There was no applause, no one taking photos, no congratulations from my family. But I was used to that. That condo wasn't for me to live in. I already had my own home. It was a plan, a carefully calculated investment. The downtown rental market was strong. 2-bedroom units were always in demand. I could rent it out for enough to cover most of the mortgage, even leave a little extra to reinvest. This wasn't a fantasy. It was a strategy. I remember clearly the day I called my mom. I didn't brag. I mentioned it casually while talking about Christmas. Oh, I just bought another investment property. My mom replied, her tone flat. Oh, that's nice. Then she switched topics and asked, what are you bringing for dinner this year? That was it. No questions about my plan, no recognition, not even a flicker of curiosity about how I'd done it. And maybe that's exactly why it was so easy for them to treat that condo as communal property. To them, I was the stable one, the doesn't need help one, the one who always figures things out. And if that's the case, then my assets could simply be redirected for someone else to use. They didn't see the years I lived on instant noodles in a cramped kitchen. They didn't see the nights I cried in my car from pure exhaustion. They didn't see me staring at my bank balance at night, worrying over every number. They only saw the result. and assumed that result should be shared with Anna. Because Anna needs it. That Christmas night, when they spoke about my condo as if it were just an empty room in their house, I realized they had never seen my effort as something deserving respect. They saw it as an obligation. What they didn't know was this: I didn't buy that condo just to make money. I bought it so I would never have to bow my head and ask anyone for help. So I would never have to hear, "We raised you for so many years." So I would never have to trade my freedom for temporary peace. And I certainly didn't buy it so Anna could find herself. If Anna wants to live downtown, Anna can get a job. If Anna wants independence, Anna can start from zero, just like I did. That condo is the symbol of a boundary it took me years to build. And that night, when I smiled and agreed that Anna could move in on Tuesday, I made a decision. No one would cross that boundary ever again. They thought I was giving in, but in reality, I was preparing. Because in my mind, the plan had already begun to take shape. Clear, cold, and completely legal. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I knew who I would call. I knew where I would post the listing. And most importantly, I knew Tuesday would not belong to Anna. It would belong to me. Christmas Eve passed like a play I had never signed up to perform in. I sat there, finished my portion, nodded at the right moments, smiled in the right places, and said all the harmless, empty phrases so no one would suspect a thing. To anyone watching, it would have looked like this. "Oh, Masha is so sweet. Such a good older sister." Only I knew that in my head, I was counting down every minute until I could leave that house. When I stood up to excuse myself and leave early, my mother even called after me, her voice light and casual. "Remember to arrange things for your sister on Tuesday." Not, "Are you okay with this?" Not, "Do you need to prepare anything?" But remember to arrange it. As if I were a warehouse manager and the condo was just a shipment waiting to be handed over. I drove home in silence. The streets of Austin were quieter than usual, Christmas lights shimmering along the roads. People were heading home to families who were actually waiting for them. And I was leaving a place once called home, with one very clear feeling. I had just been stripped of my right to decide, right there at my own dinner table. The next morning, I woke up to a message from my mother. "I've talked to Anna. She'll move in on Tuesday around 2 p.m. Remember to leave the keys somewhere convenient." I stared at the screen. No confusion, no question, no request, just a notification. My heart skipped hard for a beat, and then, strangely, everything went calm. There are moments when, after you've endured too much for too long, anger no longer explodes. It freezes. And when it freezes, you start thinking very clearly. I realized something. In their minds, the decision was already final. My opinion did not exist. If I objected, they would say I was selfish. If I hesitated, they would say I didn't love my sister. If I stayed silent, they would take it as consent. They had built the trap in advance. And they were used to me being the one who always stepped into it. I thought back to hundreds of moments before. The time my parents forgot to tell me about a family meeting and then blamed me for not showing up. The time my mother promised relatives that I would help them move without asking me. The time Anna borrowed my car for a few days and returned it with the gas tank nearly empty. Every time I told myself, it's not worth making a big deal out of this. And every time, they pushed one step further. The condo was just the final drop. Around noon that day, Anna texted me, "Hey sis, I'm packing already downtown. Here I come!" Followed by a flood of heart, house, and fireworks emojis. I read it and didn't reply right away. I put my phone down, stood up, and made coffee. My hands were steady, not shaking. That surprised me. I asked myself, if I say no today, what will happen? I already knew the answer. They would get angry. They would call me ungrateful. They would list everything they'd ever done for me. They would say I was hurting Anna. In other words, every consequence would land on me. And if I said yes, then I would continue living in the role I knew too well, the one who always gives in, always carries the load, always loses. And Anna would learn one more lesson. If you ask, you get. I remember that moment clearly. I was standing in the kitchen, a hot mug of coffee in my hand, sunlight streaming through the window. And I thought, no, not this time. Not because I hated Anna, not because I wanted revenge, but because I could not keep living like this. I went back to the table, picked up my phone, and replied to Anna with a single short message. "Yeah, I know. Tuesday." No emojis, no emotion. Right after that, a message came in from my dad. "Your mother and I trust you to do the right thing." The right thing. The right thing. By their definition. I laughed. This time a real laugh, though a bitter one. In that moment, I understood something very clearly. My family didn't think they were doing anything wrong. In their eyes, they were simply redistributing resources fairly. The older daughter is stable. The younger daughter needs help. So you take from the stable one and give to the one in need. Simple, logical, and completely ignoring one small detail. I am a person, not a bank. They didn't ask what plans I had for the condo. They didn't ask what paperwork I'd signed. They didn't ask whether I wanted anyone to live there. They just decided, and the most bitter part? They truly believed I wouldn't dare to do otherwise. Because until now, I had always been the good one. The one who didn't make the family uncomfortable. The one willing to take the loss to keep the peace. But there was one thing they didn't know. While they were texting, making plans, imagining Anna living in my condo, another plan had already started running in my mind. Not loudly, not emotionally, no arguments, just very concrete steps, and completely legal. I opened my laptop, and I started typing. There is a very particular kind of anger. No shouting, no slamming tables, no tears. It is so quiet that it becomes terrifying. I realized I was in that state at the exact moment I opened my laptop, sat down at the kitchen table, and started typing. Not an angry email, not an emotional message, but a plan. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't confused. I didn't hesitate. By then, my anger was no longer an emotion. It had turned into momentum. After years working in the service industry, I learned one crucial lesson. The first person to lose their composure is the first person to lose. My family was used to me responding in only two ways. Enduring. Staying silent and taking it. They had never seen the third option. Agreeing, but not in the way they expected. I opened my email and began drafting the condo listing. 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, new kitchen, in-unit washer and dryer, balcony overlooking downtown, walking distance to restaurants, shops, and entertainment. I typed each line slowly, carefully, as if I were retelling my own story, translated into the language of the market. There was no room for emotion here, only clarity. I set a rental price that was competitive but deliberate, not low enough to be undervalued, not high enough to scare away good tenants. I knew exactly what I was doing. I had planned for this long ago. I just hadn't expected to move this fast. I can post it after Christmas, I had thought. But life changed the timeline, and I adapted quickly. That night, close to 10 p.m., I drove to the condo. Downtown was quieter than usual. Lights reflected off the glass facade, making the building look clean, cold, and very neutral. No one there to judge me. No one demanding I sacrifice. Just me, the empty apartment, and the sound of my own footsteps. I turned on the lights, opened the balcony doors, let the cold air rush in. Then I started taking photos, one angle at a time, one room at a time. The wooden floors reflecting light, the large windows opening onto the city, the pristine kitchen never used. The condo looked better than I remembered. Maybe because this time, I wasn't looking at it through the eyes of someone about to give it up, but through the eyes of its rightful owner. Near midnight, I posted the listing on 3 major rental platforms. I turned off notifications, drove home, made myself a cup of hot tea, and went to sleep. No anxiety. No anticipation. The next morning, I woke up to 17 messages. 17. I looked at the screen and let a small smile form. Barely there. The market had answered for me. Meanwhile, another message made my phone vibrate. From my mother. Remember to leave the keys somewhere convenient. Anna has a lot of things. I didn't reply right away. I read every message from potential tenants. I responded politely. I scheduled viewings. I ran credit checks. I did everything a responsible landlord does. Only then did I text my mother back. Briefly. Yes. One word. And I could already imagine the satisfied look on her face when she read it. Because in their minds, yes meant I had accepted my familiar role. Anna, meanwhile, kept texting. Hey sis, I'm cleaning out my closet. Where do you think the sofa should go? I'm thinking of inviting friends over for a housewarming. Housewarming. The word made my chest tighten for a second, not from pain, but from clarity. My sister already considered the condo her home. She had never asked me once. I didn't respond. I let the messages sit there, untouched, evidence. That afternoon, I showed the condo to 3 people. The first, the second, the third. Each of them asked questions Anna never had. They asked about the lease, about responsibilities, about respecting the space. No one asked, "Can I live here for free?" That evening, I called one person, Jessica. She spoke clearly. She had stable employment, a solid rental history, and when she stepped into the condo, her eyes lit up, not with greed, but with appreciation. I hung up and sat quietly for a moment. Then I smiled. If anyone had seen it, they might have thought I was happy. But in truth, it was the smile of someone who had just made an irreversible decision. At the same time, my phone buzzed. A voice message from Anna. Her voice was bright with excitement. Hey sis, I'll be there Tuesday around 2, okay? I already told my friends. I listened. Didn't reply. I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. 2 images appeared in my mind. On one side, a 16-year-old girl behind a checkout counter, with no one backing her up. On the other, a 29-year-old woman, with assets, contracts, and the right to decide. I opened my eyes, and for the first time in years, I felt an unsettling calm. No fear of upsetting anyone, no fear of being hated, no fear of being called selfish. Because when you've spent your entire life living for others, choosing yourself is not betrayal. It's survival. I picked up my phone, typed a single line to Anna. Okay, Tuesday. No emojis, no explanations, nothing more. A calm smile, and a dangerous one. There is a truth very few people understand. The most dangerous plans are not born from hatred, but from clarity. My plan didn't begin with the thought, I need to get back at them. It began with something far simpler. I need to protect what is mine. Nothing more, nothing less. I never wanted to humiliate Anna. I never wanted to embarrass my parents. But I was no longer willing to accept a family system built on my silent sacrifice. That night, after sending the message, "Okay, Tuesday," I did nothing else. I didn't call anyone to vent. I didn't write in a journal. I didn't justify myself. I simply opened my laptop again and did what I have always done best: prepare. I opened my calendar. Friday, sign the lease. Monday, receive the payment. Tuesday, hand over the keys. Those 3 dates appeared before me like a clearly marked path. Anna wasn't on it. My parents weren't on it. Only me and the law. I reread the lease agreement one more time. Line by line, clause by clause. Lease term. Responsibilities of both parties. Termination conditions. Everything was clear. Everything was legal. And most importantly, no one else had a say. I knew one thing for certain. Once the contract was signed, no one, not even my parents, could force me to fix anything. That wasn't stubbornness. That was a boundary. Meanwhile, Anna was still living in her own world. She sent photos of clothes packed into suitcases, photos of new shoes to match the downtown vibe, photos of a bedside lamp. So cute, sis. I looked. I saved them. I didn't reply, not because I wanted to give her false hope, but because I understood this. If I explained now, they would attack immediately. And I didn't want to fight while emotional. I wanted them to face reality, not my words. Do you know what's stronger than an argument? An irreversible truth. Friday morning, I met Jessica. She arrived on time, neatly dressed, carrying a thick envelope. We sat at the kitchen counter in the condo, the very place where Anna was already imagining her Instagram-worthy flower vase. Jessica read the contract carefully, asked smart questions, never once rushed. When she signed her name, I heard a very soft sound inside my head. Click. Not the pen, but an old door closing. I handed Jessica the keys. She smiled brightly. I'll move in on Tuesday. I'm on leave this week, so it's perfect. Tuesday. I nodded. Perfect. On the drive home, I turned on music for the first time since Christmas. Not sad music, not victory music. Just a familiar song I always play when I need to remind myself I'm okay. That evening, my mother called. I looked at the screen, hesitated for a second, then answered. Masha, my mother's voice was unusually gentle. Everything okay? Have you prepared everything for Anna? Prepared. I took a deep breath. Yes, I said. Everything is being handled. Not a lie, not the full truth, just the right amount. She sounded satisfied, reminded me to be there on Tuesday, then hung up. I set my phone down and noticed my hands weren't shaking. I was no longer the girl afraid of disappointing someone. I was a woman accustomed to making decisions not everyone would like. The night before Tuesday, I slept deeply. No nightmares. No restlessness. Maybe because for the first time, I knew exactly whose side I was on. Tuesday morning, I woke up early, made coffee, ate breakfast properly, no rush, no anxiety. I texted Jessica, "Everything ready?" She replied immediately, "The movers are loading up. I'll be there around 1 p.m. 1 o'clock. Anna said 2. I looked at the clock and smiled, just slightly. Not a triumphant smile, but the smile of someone who had completed a plan. I knew what was coming. There would be tears. There would be anger. There would be words sharp enough to cut. But I also knew something more important. This Tuesday, for the first time in my life, I would not step back. And that wasn't cruelty. It was long overdue maturity. There's a strangely sad paradox in my life. The people who don't even share my last name have always respected me more than my own family. I realized this very clearly on the day I met Jessica. The first showing took place on a softly sunny afternoon. I arrived 10 minutes early, unlocked the door, and turned on all the lights. The condo looked bright, clean, and quiet. A kind of quiet very different from my parents' house, where there were always voices, but rarely any listening. Jessica arrived right on time. Not early enough to create pressure, not late enough to suggest carelessness. She knocked gently and smiled when I opened the door. "Hi, I'm Jessica. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me." Just that one sentence, and I already felt the difference. Not, "I'm moving in soon." Not, "I'm allowed to live here." But thank you. We walked through the apartment together. Jessica didn't rush to the balcony to take photos. She examined the details carefully. The floors, the kitchen, the outlets, the cabinets. She asked, "Is the electrical and plumbing system checked regularly? How responsive is building management if something goes wrong? If I need minor repairs, what's the process?" Those questions made me feel lighter, because I knew this was someone who wouldn't treat my home as something to use and discard. Standing on the balcony, looking down at the street, Jessica turned to me and said sincerely, "I really like this space. It feels cared for." I smiled. "Because it is." She smiled back, not politely, but with the kind of smile that comes from understanding exactly what that means. After Jessica, I met 2 more people. Both were solid, employed, with good rental histories. But when they left, I knew clearly neither of them was Jessica. That evening, I sat at the dining table with my laptop, comparing applications. I didn't just look at numbers, I looked at attitude, at how they spoke, at the questions they asked. And I thought about Anna. Anna had never asked me a single question like that. She hadn't asked about the lease, about responsibilities, about timelines. She had only asked, "Where should I put the sofa?" I called Jessica. She answered almost immediately. "Hi, this is Masha." "Yes, hi. I wanted to let you know, if you're still interested, I'd like to offer you the lease." There was a very brief pause on the other end of the line. Then I heard a sharp inhale, the sound people make when they've just received good news they don't quite dare believe yet. "Really?" Jessica asked. I really love that apartment." "Good," I said. "I do too. Would you be able to sign the lease on Friday?" "Yes. I'll bring a cashier's check." A cashier's check. Not, "Can I pay later?" Not, "I'm short on money right now." Just preparation. On Friday, Jessica arrived on time. We sat down together and read through every page of the lease. She didn't rush, didn't skim. She asked questions when something wasn't clear. She nodded when it was. When the pen touched the paper and her signature was complete, I felt something unfamiliar in my chest. Not joy, not triumph, but relief. I handed her the keys. "When would you like to move in?" "Tuesday," she said with a small smile. "I'm on leave this week." "Tuesday." I nodded. Perfect timing. Jessica took the keys, her eyes lighting up, not with possession, but with gratitude. After she left, I stayed in the empty condo for a long time. I thought about Anna, packing her suitcases, dreaming of a free downtown life. Then I thought about Jessica, who had signed a contract, paid properly, and was ready to take responsibility. And I realized the difference between them wasn't luck. It was their attitude toward life. Jessica wasn't perfect because she was rich or successful. She was perfect because she respected other people's boundaries. At that moment, my phone buzzed. A message from Anna. "Hey sis, I told my friends Tuesday is housewarming." I looked at the screen, then at the keys in my hand. 2 parallel realities. 2 people. 2 choices. I didn't reply. Not because I was cruel, but because I had chosen to stand on the side of reality, not illusion. I locked the condo, slipped the keys into my pocket, and walked away. Tuesday was coming, and this time I knew very clearly. Whoever walks through that door will be the one who has the right to stay. Tuesday came faster than I expected. That morning, I woke up very early, not because I was anxious, not because I was nervous, but because I had slept incredibly well. A deep, dreamless sleep. The kind of sleep that comes after a decision has already been made. I made coffee, ate breakfast slowly, as if today were just another ordinary day. Outside, the sun rose gently. Austin mornings have a deceptive calm, one that makes you believe everything will be fine. My phone buzzed at 9:12 a.m., a message from Anna. "Hey sis, I'm on my way." I stared at the text for a few seconds, didn't reply. 9:34, an incoming call. Anna's name lit up the screen. I let it ring, then stop. 9:41, another message. Where are you? I'm here already." I took a sip of coffee, bitter, but pleasant. 9:45, my phone vibrated nonstop. This time, it was my mother. I answered. "Masha!" My mother's voice was sharp and urgent. "Where are you? Anna's been standing outside the condo for a while now." "I'm at home," I replied, so calmly it surprised even me. "At home?" my mother almost shouted. "Anna is moving in today." "No," I said slowly. "Today my tenant is moving in." There was silence on the other end. Then my mother's voice began to tremble, not with sadness, but with barely controlled rage. "What are you talking about?" "I'm saying," I repeated, "the condo has been rented. The lease was signed last week. They're moving in right now." "What kind of joke is this, Masha?" my mother snapped. "Anna is standing out there with a pile of suitcases. The neighbors are watching." "Then you should help her go back home," I said. "What are you doing?" my mother's voice cracked. "Are you deliberately humiliating your sister?" I closed my eyes for a second, then said very clearly, "No, I'm just not letting anyone take my home anymore." I hung up. My phone immediately rang again. This time, Anna. I answered. "What the hell are you doing, Masha?" Anna screamed without greeting. "There are strangers carrying furniture inside." "They're not strangers," I said. "They're the tenants." "Tenants of what?" Anna nearly shrieked. "This is my home." I took a deep breath. "No, Anna, this is my home." "You promised me." Anna's voice shook. "You said I could move in on Tuesday." "I said move in Tuesday," I replied. "I didn't say you." Silence. Then I heard Anna breathing fast, as if she'd just been slapped. "You're playing word games with me?" she asked, her voice breaking. "No," I said. "I'm just not undoing a decision that you and our parents made without me." "Do you know I already told my friends?" Anna burst into tears. "Everyone knows I'm moving downtown today." "Then you should learn to wait until you actually have keys in your hand before bragging," I said. Not loudly, not cruelly. Just the truth. "Masha." "You're horrible," Anna screamed. "Do you want me to die of humiliation in front of the neighbors?" "No," I said. I want you to learn a lesson you should have learned at 18. On the other end, her crying broke loose, high-pitched and chaotic. I'm your sister, Anna shouted. You're supposed to help me. Helping, I said slowly, doesn't mean sacrificing my boundaries. I heard my mother cut in, grabbing the phone. Masha, have you lost your mind? My mother yelled, her voice shaking with anger. You're tearing this family apart. This family tore me apart a long time ago, I replied quietly. I'm just not letting it continue. Do you know how Anna is crying right now? My mother said. She's standing on the street like she's homeless. No, I said. She has a home. Yours. You're selfish, my mother screamed. You have an entire house. Why can't you let your sister stay? I smiled. A smile no one could see. Because Anna's version of stayin', I said, means unlimited time, 0 rent, and 0 responsibility. Silence. Then my father's voice came through, cold and heavy. You've disappointed us, Masha. I swallowed. I'm used to it, I replied. Then I hung up. I placed the phone on the table. My hands were slightly shaking, but inside I felt strange. Not as painful as I expected. No regret. Just one very clear feeling. I had just closed a door that should have been closed years ago. A while later, I received a message from Jessica. Hey, we finished moving in. The apartment is beautiful. Thank you so much. I stared at the message, and I knew. In the same space, the same home. One person sees paradise. Another sees an entitlement taken away, and only one of them truly deserves to step inside. After that Tuesday, I thought things would eventually settle down. I was wrong. My family's anger didn't explode and burn out. It smoldered, slow, persistent, and toxic. That evening, just as I sat down to eat dinner, my phone began vibrating nonstop. Not one call, but a downpour of messages. From my mother, from my father, from Anna, then my mother again. I didn't open them right away. I knew that if I did, I'd be dragged straight back into the old cycle, apologizing, explaining, being dismissed, then blamed. I finished my meal, washed the dishes, made a cup of tea. Only then did I check my phone. The first message from my mother. What you did is unacceptable. The second. Anna cried all day. She hasn't eaten anything. The third. Are you even human anymore? I read slowly. No reaction, no reply. Anna's messages were longer. So you enjoyed watching me get humiliated on the street, didn't you? All my friends keep asking why I haven't moved in yet. You've always thought you were better than me. I let out a small laugh. Not because it was funny, but because it was familiar. This was the same old script. I was just the villain again. About 30 minutes later, my father called. I stared at his name on the screen for a long time before answering. Dad, I said. His voice was low and slow, but stretched tight like a wire about to snap. Do you know what you did today? I do, I replied. I protected my property. No, my father cut in. You humiliated your sister in front of the neighbors. I closed my eyes. Dad, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She had no right to be there. Right? He laughed bitterly. Since when does this family talk about rights? I stayed silent, and that silence only made him angrier. You're too calculating, he raised his voice. It was just letting your sister stay. For how long? I asked. He didn't answer. For how long? I asked again. Are you arguing with me now? He snapped. No, I said. I'm asking the question no one has ever answered. On the other end, I heard my mother cut in. Masha, You've truly disappointed me, she said, her voice trembling. I don't recognize you anymore. That sentence hit hard, not because it was true, but because it had been used for years to make me feel wrong. This time, I didn't collapse. Maybe, I said, because I'm no longer the daughter who always gives in. You think you're so great now? My mother burst into tears. A little money, a house, and suddenly you look down on your family? No, I replied. I think I deserve to be asked. Anna is your sister, my mother screamed. She needs you. She needs to learn how to stand on her own, I said. And you need to stop cushioning every fall for her. The air on the other end went cold. Then my father spoke, very slowly, each word deliberate. If you don't fix this, then from now on, don't expect to call us family anymore. An ultimatum. I had been waiting for that sentence. Not because I wanted to hear it, but because I knew it was coming. What do you mean? I asked. Either you terminate that lease, my father said, or we're done. I laughed, not out of joy, but because, finally, they had said out loud what I had felt for a long time. Their love had always been conditional. Dad, I said quietly, I'm not canceling the lease. Then, he said coldly, you've made your choice. I took a deep breath. Yes, I replied. I have. I hung up. I set the phone down. My hands trembled slightly. My heart was racing. My throat felt tight. And then, everything settled. No tears, no panic, just one clear realization. Their anger wasn't because I was wrong. It was because I was no longer easy to control. That night I sat alone in my living room. The house was quiet. No shouting. No accusations. And for the first time in my life, that silence was no longer frightening. After that call, the house became strangely quiet. Not the uncomfortable kind of silence, but the kind you feel in a room that has just been cleared of things that were never truly needed. I sat on the couch for a long time, staring at the wall across from me. No TV, no music. I needed to hear my own thoughts clearly. I had made a choice. Not a choice for money. Not a choice for the apartment. I chose boundaries. The next morning, I woke up to a long message from my mother. No capital letters, no shouting, but every word felt heavy as stone. Masha, I couldn't sleep all night. I don't understand why you've become so cold. Family is meant to be support, not contracts and calculations. Anna is falling apart. If you still have any feelings left, you should reconsider. I read it, then put my phone down. Cold. They always use that word. Because in their eyes, any behavior that didn't comply was heartless. I typed my reply. Not long. No explanations. I've thought this through carefully. The apartment is my property. I won't cancel the lease. I still love my family, but I won't accept decisions being made for me. I need to be respected. I sent it. A few minutes later, my father's message came in. You're destroying everything. We didn't raise you to live like this. I let out a slow breath. They taught me independence when I was 19. Now that I was living exactly that way, they told me I was wrong. I didn't reply. Around noon, my phone rang again. Anna. I hesitated, then answered. Masha. Anna's voice was hoarse, no longer screaming. Do you really want me out on the street? No, I said. You have a home. But that's not my home, Anna said quickly. I want to start over. Start over, I repeated. By living in my place, rent-free, with no end date? Anna fell silent. I promise I'll look for a job, she said. Just give me a few months. Anna, I said slowly, very slowly. I've heard that promise my whole life. You don't believe me? Her voice trembled. I do, I said. I believe you need to do it without me rescuing you." "So you're choosing the apartment over me?" Anna asked bitterly. I closed my eyes. "No," I said. "I'm choosing not to let you depend on me anymore." "You've changed," Anna whispered. "Yes," I replied, "and I should have changed a long time ago." She hung up. That afternoon, I received an email from my father. Subject: family. The message was brief. "If you don't correct this, your mother and I will reconsider our relationship with you. A family cannot exist if everyone only thinks of themselves." I read it. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop and wrote a reply. This time, longer. "I am not rejecting my family. I am rejecting the role the family assigned to me. The one who sacrifices, the one who gives in, the one who carries responsibility for others. I lived like that for many years. I am exhausted. If affection only exists when I obey, then it isn't affection. I am not asking you to agree with me. I am asking to be respected." I sent it. And then, nothing. No messages, no calls, no accusations. The silence lasted for days. At first, it hurt a little. Then I realized this was the first time silence wasn't a punishment. It was the consequence of a boundary being set. I returned to my life. Work, the gym, dinners alone, but not lonely. Jessica texted me about a light bulb in the kitchen. I replied, called a handyman. Everything was simple, respectful, appropriate, a healthy relationship. No demands, no manipulation, no using family as leverage. And in that very ordinary moment, I understood. Boundaries don't destroy families. They only destroy relationships that were built on control. The silence lasted exactly 1 week. No phone calls, no messages, no checking in. I knew what that meant. My family wasn't silent to reflect. They were silent to prepare their next move. On Monday morning, my phone rang at exactly 7 a.m. My father. I stared at the screen for a long moment, then answered. "I'm listening." His voice was cold, not loud, not soft. The voice of someone who had already made a decision. "The week is over," he said. "Have you reconsidered?" I sat up straight. "Yes," I replied. "I haven't changed my decision." On the other end, I heard a heavy exhale. "Then it's settled," my father said. "We can't have a relationship with someone who values property over family." I swallowed. "Dad," I said slowly, "I've never chosen property over family. I've only refused to be controlled." "You've always been good with words," he cut in. "But your actions say everything." I didn't argue. I had learned that not every debate needs to be won. "We won't be inviting you to family occasions anymore," he continued. "Birthdays, holidays, nothing." I stayed silent. "Do you hear me?" he snapped. "I hear you," I said. There was a brief pause. I knew he was waiting for an apology, for pleading, for a promise to fix things. I said nothing. Finally, my father spoke, slowly, like stamping a document. "From now on, you are no longer part of this family." I closed my eyes. "I understand," I said. "Goodbye, Dad." I hung up. There were no tears at first, just a vast emptiness opening in my chest. I sat on the edge of the bed for a few minutes, phone still in my hand. I waited for the collapse, the panic, the regret. None came. Only a quiet sadness, like saying goodbye to something that had died long ago, officially declared dead only today. By noon, I realized I had been blocked on social media. My mother's page no longer appeared. Anna vanished from my friends list. Old posts, no longer accessible. I laughed softly. They thought cutting me off digitally was a punishment. They didn't realize I had been living independently for a long time. That afternoon, I found a card placed at my door. My mother's handwriting. Inside was a long letter, very long, about how family matters more than anything, about how Anna is falling apart, about how I have changed, and then the final paragraph. We are giving you one last chance. If you cancel the lease and let Anna move in, we can put all of this behind us. If not, you must understand there will be consequences. Consequences. I reread that word several times. What consequences? Losing my family? Being spoken badly about? Being disinherited? I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer with my important documents. I didn't burn it. I didn't tear it up. I kept it. I didn't reply. 3 days later, another letter arrived. This one was brief, from both parents, typed. We have decided to remove you from our will. All assets will be left to Anna. We hope you are satisfied with your choice. I read it, folded it, filed it with the others. Strangely, I didn't feel pain, maybe because I had never counted on it. I had built my life without relying on anyone's promises. That evening, I cooked dinner. Simple. Roasted chicken, vegetables, a small glass of wine. I ate alone, but not lonely. Jessica texted, "Hi, I sent this month's rent a day early. Thanks again for fixing the faucet so quickly." I smiled. Somewhere, a relationship was functioning on respect, not entitlement. A few days later, I heard through acquaintances that my mother had posted a very long message online. She didn't name me, but everyone knew who it was about. Ungrateful children. Parents who sacrificed everything. A broken family. I didn't read it. I didn't need to. Because truth doesn't need to defend itself to people who have already chosen a different version. That night, I sat on my porch, watching the sky darken. The breeze was cool. The flowers I had planted were still blooming. I thought about one very clear thing. Cutting ties is not revenge. Cutting ties is self-defense. I didn't abandon my family. I simply refused to keep being hurt. And when I accepted that, a strange peace settled in. Not loud, not victorious, just the feeling of standing upright in my own life. After the day I was completely cut off, my life didn't collapse the way so many people assume it would. On the contrary, it became surprisingly stable. In the mornings, I went to work. In the evenings, I came home. On weekends, I tended the garden, read books, cooked for myself. No one called to scold me. No one texted to demand things. No one made me explain why I deserved to exist. For the first time in my life, I was living without being on guard. The downtown condo functioned exactly as I had planned. Jessica was the perfect tenant. She paid on time, kept the place clean, and always notified me in advance if she needed anything. A relationship that was clear, straightforward, and mutually respectful. The irony wasn't lost on me. A stranger treated me better than the people who shared my blood. A few months later, I started hearing news about Anna. At first through a distant relative, then through old mutual acquaintances. Anna was still living with our parents. She didn't have a stable job. The glossy social media photos were gone. People who had once defended her began to complain. She's grown, but still can't take care of herself. She relies on others too much. Our parents spoiled her. Those words had once been said about me. The only difference was this time, there was no one left to carry the weight for her. My parents, too, began to grow tired. There was no longer an independent child to compare against. No longer a silent sacrifice being made. Only a daughter they had protected for too long. So long that she couldn't stand on her own. Fairness doesn't arrive with thunder. It arrives through reality. As for me, life began opening other doors. I was promoted at work. My income became more stable. I started spending money on things I had long postponed: short trips, further education, health. I met someone new, slowly, without rushing, without pressure, someone who respected my boundaries from the very beginning. I didn't tell him my family story right away. And when I did, he didn't judge. He simply said, "What you did was very hard, but very right." 1 year after that Christmas, I received a message from an unfamiliar number. It was Anna. "Sis, I'm working now. It's not easy, but I understand." Just one short sentence. No apology, no blame, just acknowledgement. I read it. I didn't reply immediately, not because I was angry, but because I understood. Some lessons can only be completed by walking them all the way through. A few weeks later, my parents sent a letter. No demands, no conditions, just an invitation for coffee. I didn't rush to accept, but I didn't tear it up either, because now I had the right to choose my own pace. And that was fairness. Not who was right, not who won, but each person living with the consequences of their own choices. Anna learned how to stand on her own. My parents learned how to loosen control. And I learned the most important thing of all. Loving your family does not mean abandoning yourself. And saying no is not selfish. It is self-respect. That evening, I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. A light breeze. A quiet sky. There was no longer any false paradise to be cast out of. Because I had built my own paradise. With work, with boundaries, and with the courage not to turn back. Looking back at everything that happened, I understand now that the most painful part wasn't being turned away by my family. It was learning how to stand on my own side after so many years of being used to giving in. I used to believe that love meant endurance, but it turns out that real love always requires boundaries. If you're listening to this story and see yourself somewhere in me, the one who always tries, always sacrifices, yet is taken for granted, I hope you remember this. You are not selfish for protecting what you built with your own hands. Thank you for staying until the end of my journey. If this story resonated with you, feel free to leave a comment and share your thoughts. And if you'd like to continue hearing real stories about self-respect, awakening, and living without asking for permission, subscribe and walk with me through the stories to come. We deserve a fairer life.